In this episode, we'll take a look at the Rode Interview Pro, which is a handheld interview microphone. And I'm going to tell you first about the pros and some of the cons, and we'll kind of wrap up from there. First up, it's a handheld wireless microphone with built-in 32-bit float recording. You can record up to 40 hours in the microphone itself. Now, when you buy it, you get just the microphone itself. You can transmit wirelessly, of course, from this microphone. Here's the little antenna on the bottom. You can kind of see there. It can transmit to the Rode Wireless Go 2, the Wireless Me, the Wireless Pro, the RODECaster Pro 2, the RODECaster Duo, or the Rode Streamer X. It does have an omnidirectional polar pattern, and that does two things. Well, mainly one thing. It picks up from, two things. It picks up from all directions, so you can see as I turn the microphone, as long as I keep it relatively close to me, the overall sound doesn't start to reject me, even if I'm not talking right into the front of the microphone. Now, as an interview microphone, that makes this very, very convenient. So what I've done in the past, so for example, when I go to the National Association of Broadcasters show and I'm interviewing different vendors there, in the past, I've taken the Rode Reporter microphone, which also has an omnidirectional polar pattern. And you might think to yourself intuitively, that doesn't make sense. You're going to pick up a lot more of the crowd noise and things like that. But actually, it works surprisingly well. And it also makes it so that pointing the microphone at the person that you're interviewing is not quite, you don't have to be quite so dramatic about it. You can generally hold the microphone between the two of you. And that's, in fact, I can put a link to some of those interviews that I did. And it works pretty well. You don't have to be super aggressive about moving the microphone back and forth like this to get your interview. So that actually works out pretty well. Now, it also, by just proximity, it is essentially how it'll pick up the things that are closest to it, and it will pick up less of the things that are farther away from it. So it actually works out really pretty nicely for an interview mic. It does also be the fact that it's an omnidirectional polar pattern also means you get less proximity effects. So when I get up really, really closely on the microphone, it doesn't have as much of that bass response that you would normally get on a directional microphone, like a cardioid handheld microphone. So it also manages that pretty nicely. It does have a very warm broadcast sound, I will say that, and it does use a condenser microphone capsule. So it has an inbuilt battery that's powering the microphone itself in addition to the wireless. It's also powering the microphone capsule. It does have a GainAssist feature, and what this does is it makes it so that you don't have to worry about setting the gain. So let's go ahead and switch over to, right now I have the GainAssist turned off. Now I've turned it to GainAssist Auto. This is GainAssist Auto. And you can see what happens maybe as I move the microphone closer and farther away from my mouth. You can see that it's adjusting those levels a little bit. And then there's also a Gain Assist Dynamic, which should be a less aggressive form of Gain Assist. So as I move the microphone away and then as I move it closer up, it should be retaining a little bit more of the dynamics in my voice. And then here we're back with the Gain Assist turned off so that you can hear what that sounds like. I probably wouldn't use this all the time, but if you really want to maybe simplify your setup, maybe it's an option for you. It does have a mute button, and this is just going to mute the wireless transmission. It is not going to mute the internal recording on the mic itself. And you can see I've started the recording. There are two buttons here, one to start and stop the recording and another one for mute. And I can press the mute button. And then I unmute, and now you can hear me again. So that's the mute button right there. It wasn't a perfectly transparent, non-clicking. I mean, you can hear when the mute button's being pressed, just so be aware of that. Plosives, how does this microphone do? It does quite well at plosives. Plosives are the kind of the boo sound you get in a microphone when you say the letters P, B, or T, or anything where a little puff of air comes out of your mouth. This one tends to do quite well with or without the foam. I found it worked pretty nicely. Peter Piper picks a peck of purple pickled peppers. Peter Piper picked a peck of purple pickled peppers. All right. Now, this included foam cover also prevents distortion when you're out in the wind, but only for the slightest of breezes, maybe up to 5 miles per hour. Beyond that, I would say this may not do it. Now, there is also the question of sibilance. Sibilance is the sizzling sound you get when you say the letter S or C. Some voices have more of it than others. Mine has a good bit of it. I would say that, again, this microphone has a broadcast sound to it, so it's not a really even frequency response. It has kind of a boost in the bass frequencies, but it also has a boost in the higher frequencies where sibilance sits as well. I would say with the foam, I'm not noticing a ton of it. Might need a de-esser depending on the voice that you're recording. But overall, I think it's a pretty nice sound if you like that broadcast sound. Now, it does have an inbuilt battery, and in our test, this battery powered the microphone for 18 hours and 55 minutes. That was with the recording going and transmitting wirelessly the entire time. So that's a pretty impressive time. Now, it's less than what they actually say in their specs. They say up to 20 hours. I think maybe that's if you're not recording and you're just transmitting wirelessly, or maybe if you're just, I think, whatever. Anyway, we got 18 hours and 55 minutes. That's a long time. That's a good battery. Indoor distance tests, we went through my entire home here. We did not have any dropouts. I started here on the lower floor here, went through 2 different doors up to the next floor, walked all around up there. We never dropped the signal, so it does really well there. Outdoor distance, just like all of the other Rode wireless microphones in this generation, the 4th generation, we were able to get 110 meters away from the receiver. I was using the Rode Wireless Pro on my camera, and then using this as the transmitter, and 110 meters when we had direct line of sight, we had a strong connection. And then if we put it out of line of sight, in other words, if I turn my back to the camera, which you would not be very likely to do with this type of microphone, but just so that you're aware, when I turned my back to the camera, we lost the signal at about 25 meters. So there's a substantial difference. If you're in direct line of sight, you're going to get a much longer distance. This microphone seems to handling noise pretty well. If I switch the microphone back and forth between my hands, you could hear my ring actually clicked against the microphone there. But just handing it back and forth. Yeah, you can hear some of it, but not nearly as much as you can with most other microphones that I've experienced. So it actually is doing a pretty good job. It's got some internal shock mounting that seems to be doing really, really nice job. We did our practical noise floor sample, and this came in at minus 64 dB RMS max. What that means in practical terms is if you're doing a recording, you're talking, you normalize the loudness to minus 23 LUFS. Our noise floor sat at minus 64. I'm just looking for that to be below minus 60, and that's usually pretty good. So it's not the best performing microphone in terms of self-noise, but it's, I think, acceptable. It does include a pouch for storage and transport, a stand clip so that if you do want to put it on a stand, you can. Just like that. And it comes with a USB-C cable for charging, as well as the foam cover. It is manufactured in Sydney, Australia, and it has a 2-year warranty if you register over at the roadside after you make your purchase, and it is priced at $249 US at the time of this review. So those are the pros. Let's talk about the cons really quickly. There is no such thing as a perfect product. First of all, this is a non-user replaceable battery. There are 3 things I want to say about that. Number 1, Rode could have engineered user replaceable batteries into this product. And I know they could because they did in the previous generation Rode Link Performer, which is a microphone very, very similar to this. That's the first thing. Second thing, if you don't charge before a long production day and you have a nonstop recording schedule the next day, you may run out of juice on day 2. And there's no way to replace the battery. You have to get it charged up again before you can start recording again. It's kind of a pain. I realize, 18 hours, 55 minutes, that's going to be pretty good, and it's going to get most people through most days, but you do need to be on top of your charging schedule and make sure you get it charged up for the next day. Here's the biggest thing, though. From my point of view, I'm really tiring of inbuilt batteries that are not user replaceable. Many of these will end up as e-junk in the landfill, and they shouldn't be there. And I really don't see a disadvantage to having user replaceable batteries, so I don't understand why they did this. Rode, I'd love for you to explain this to us. I just don't see the advantage. I'm also going to list as a con as a 2-year warranty, because if the battery goes bad after that, in other words, it won't hold a charge anymore, I don't know what your options are. Presumably you can send it into Rode and they would change the battery, but I still think a lot of them are going to end up in the landfill, which is bad. The foam cover has Rode emblazoned on it, and it's a fine cover. And the fact that there's a big Rode symbol on, or Rode insignia or logo or whatever this is on there, I think if you're working professionally, and this is, after all, called the Interview Pro, if you're working professionally, the clients may not want a huge Rode logo on the microphone. So I would really prefer for that to be much lower profile, less screaming at you. Now, there is one other thing that I'm working on with Rode. I just emailed them today. I noticed This microphone on the internal recording and the recording that we made to the RODECaster Pro 2 had some DC offset. What is DC offset? It's when the audio, when you stop talking and the audio kind of comes to the center line. Well, when you have some DC offset, it doesn't come to the center line. It doesn't come to the minus infinity line. It actually is offset from that a fair bit. You can fix that in post. It's not a big deal, but it does rob you of headroom. So it's not the most ideal thing. I'm working with them to see if maybe I have a defective copy. I don't know. I'll let you know down in the comments once I find out. So overall, that is the Rode Interview Pro. Would I recommend it? I want to. I think it sounds pretty good. I think it performs pretty well. I can't give it a high recommendation because of the internal non-user replaceable battery. But if this fits your use case, sounds pretty good, performs well, it might work well for you. I hope that was helpful for you. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave those down below. In the meantime, get out there, make some great sound. We'll talk to you again soon.